Okay, we're back and we're going to be continuing into Sigmund Freud's theories of psychoanalytical theory. One of the other key components of his theory is dealing with the structure of personality and how does your personality develop. And this is something Freud was very fascinated with, is how do we create our personalities. And again, remember, he says that we develop them very early in our lives, young age, anywhere between as early as 3 to 7, 8, 9 years old is where your personality develops according to Freud. So how that happens then is basically through your learning and developing, much by your parents. Freud says that that's basically where your personality comes from. So what we're going to do, what you're going to do, actually, is besides just getting the notes down, is you can see here there is a website that I want you to go to, and it's called outofservice.com, and basically you will just need to type that in to your computer, and it will take you to this website, and you will complete the Big Five personality test, which is today one of the most used and most accurate types of personality tests to develop. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Big Five in class, but I do need you to go ahead and do this and have your results, bring them to class. All you got to do is just answer the questions as honestly and directly as possible. Read each one. I see myself as someone who is, and if is talkative. Do you strongly disagree? Do you not see yourself as talkative, as someone that's very engaging, or do you strongly agree that you are very talkative? If it's somewhere in the middle, then again, that's neither disagree or agree, and then the other two choices. Answer them again. Take some thought. Take some time to answer these. Once you get done, and there's about 30 or 45 of them, then you're going to answer a couple other basic questions, and then you'll submit it, and it's going to give you results. Then you will print those results off, and you will bring them with you to class then. Okay, so you want to make sure you have that. All right, getting into the structure of personality then with Freud. Basically what Freud says happens to us to develop our personality is our minds, as we're going through different behaviors and experiences, our minds begin to make choices. And basically you have three different components that makes up what Freud calls your structure of personality. The first is your id. This is your primitive instinctive component. And basically this is driven by your pleasure principle, which demands immediate gratification. This is the one that when you go out to eat and you are trying to lose weight, and instead of ordering that salad and being very controlling, you go ahead and order the triple cheeseburger and tell yourself that it's okay. You'll make your diet up sometime later on. Okay, people who are driven by their id, it's a part of their personality, very much are driven by their immediate gratification of urges. They want something now, and they are not willing to wait on it. And this can become very problematic for a lot of people who basically, when it comes to, for example, watching these videos now, this is your assignment that you're supposed to be doing. So if you are watching it, then you have been able to control your id, and you're able to get through your urges to be able to go play video games or to watch TV or whatever else you want to do. That is the pleasure part, and you're going ahead and getting down the things that you need to do. That is the second component, and that is your ego. Your ego is your reality principle. This is dealing with your decision-making component. It looks to delay gratification of your id. So it's trying to control your id as best as possible by telling it that you'll go play the video games later once you get done with the video and get done with your assignments and everything else. Then you can go have relaxation and enjoyment and fun. But it looks to be able to make those decisions, and it's a very mature part of your personality and the development. People controlled by their ego are much more likely to be successful. They're much more likely to be able to have control of their lives and to keep control and be able to get through a lot of the different problems and things that goes on. Those that are controlled by their ids tend to be a lot more problematic. They don't get things done. They tend to be a lot more anxiety driven, and they're a lot more aggressive and angry all the time because they're not able to get success that they want. Finally, you have your superego. Now, what Freud talks about here is this is your moral component. Okay, and this is controlled by your moral compass of dealing with standards of right and wrong. The difficulty with your superego is that a lot of times it can put a lot of depression and anxieties driven upon you. Here, you not just get wanting to go ahead and watch the videos like your ego is telling you to do, but your superego is getting into this concept that maybe you're not doing well enough, that you need to be studying harder, you need to be pushing yourself further, that you're not doing what is absolutely needed to be doing all the time. So that superego gets you into that guilt. It gets you into those anxieties. It's not necessarily a bad component to have as part of your personality, but you do not want to be controlled by it. You actually don't want to be controlled by any of these all the time. There is a time and place where you want to have each one of these structures of your personality to be able to have a little bit of fun with your id, to be able to be more decision making and a lot more mature with your ego. And then sometimes even with your superego, when you have those components of trying to figure out whether or not you need to be helping somebody out or giving assistance or trying to pull off the side of the road when you see someone that's stranded, those kinds of things. That is, again, a good structured personality is someone that has those three components all in play. So where do these three components live, so to speak, inside your brain? Well, basically, this is where we get back to what Freud was talking about with your consciousness. Again, if you look at the picture there, you can see the iceberg is a good example of what we're talking about here. At the very top of the iceberg, which is the part that you basically see when you're out in the water, it's not very big. It's not very much. And that's the same thing when it comes to your brain. Your conscious state is the part of the brain that you are using when you are focusing, when you are paying attention, when you are in deep thought. That part of the brain is only used about 10 to 15% of the time. We don't actually use a lot of our conscious part of our brain, our active thinking part of our brain, a whole lot. The preconscious part of our brain, that is more where the material that's just below the surface, that is more where your part of your personality that's dealing with your superego. Sorry about that. And that's where that is housed at. So it's just below the level of your conscious state. You're still thinking about it. You still have awareness of it, but you're not constantly in a state of thought. It's those thoughts, those images that come back up to your conscious level relatively easy, and those thoughts that comes into play. Now, your unconscious mind, that's at the very bottom of the ocean level there. That's down below where basically your id lives, and that is those thoughts, desires that are well below awareness. We don't know we're thinking about a lot of those things. We don't have the relative conscious thought that we are aware of. We're having those thoughts, having those images, having those different desires, but they're there. And a lot of times those come bubbling up to the surface without us even knowing it. That's where the id is at. That's where you're driven by those urges and by those desires that you want. And if you notice, it is the biggest part of the iceberg as well. So what happens? We basically have a conflict. When your id, your ego, and superego are all trying to control your behavior, your actions, your thoughts of your brain, you're running into all kinds of problems then. Remember, Freud also believes that we have the two biggest drives we have is sex and aggression. Now, they're not the only drives. Remember, you're also driven by many other things. Food, you're driven by, a lot of times, by sleep or by rest. We have lots of drives inside of our human body, but Freud believes that sex and aggression are the main two that focuses most of our attention to. So basically what Freud is talking about here is when we are basically having these impulses and we have these conflicts, okay, your id is telling you, no, don't watch the video anymore, shut the thing off and go play your video games. Your ego is telling you, no, you need to get through this, need to get the information, need to understand it because you want to get a good grade. Your superego is coming into play and telling you not just that, but it's also telling you that you are maybe giving you some guilt and giving you some transgression that, your parents are paying for this college and you need to make sure that you're doing a better job than what you are doing, and it just constantly is battling. So what happens? You're having all these conflicting thoughts running through your brain, all these conflicting images running through your brain, and you're beginning to having anxieties. And your brain doesn't like that. It doesn't like having these battles going on. So what happens out of this then is we begin to use what's called defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms are reactions in order to try to protect us emotionally and psychologically from having some type of nervous breakdown. And that does happen sometimes when you are very conflicted with what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and you get into those kinds of moral dilemmas that we have. So we build what are called these defense mechanisms in order to be able to help us feel better. And that's what we'll be getting into next then down the road. God damn it. Hello. Pretty good.